Hey folks, Lumpz the Clown here, and after a small hiatus I am back to regale you with my awesomely amazing PlayStation 1 video game collection. Yes, this is going to be an absolutely amazing fucking episode. Can't wait to show you off what I got here in my collection. A lot of these I've had for about, 10 years. The oldest one being about 15, and of course when I get to it I'll let you know which one that is. I should give you a little bit of background. I was a Nintendo fanboy, okay? I had my NES, I had my fucking Game Boy, and I had my Super Nintendo. I was firmly in Nintendo's camp for many years. And then we started hearing a little bit about the Sony PlayStation 1, and I'm like, what the fuck is a Sony PlayStation 1? And whoa, it uses CDs. Holy shit, that's amazing. So my brother ended up working all summer. He mowed fucking lawn after lawn after lawn after lawn, and he finally bought one used. And we brought it home. But we didn't have no fucking games for it. So we go to the video store, and we picked out 2 titles. And from those 2 titles spurred an entire fucking era of me being Sony fucking PlayStation fan motherfucker out of hell. Like, oh, I went from PlayStation 1 to PlayStation 2. And then I couldn't afford a PS3. And then I jumped back to Nintendo for a little bit. But we'll address that in later episodes. But for right now, let's talk about those 2 titles that got me fired up in the first place. Clock Tower. Oh yes. Now, this is the back cover. As you can see, I didn't have the manual anymore, thus the front cover art, but this is all in very good shape. That awesome picture of Scissor Man right there. We got some screen caps from in-game, some of the more awesome scenes, and raw, unedited best. So yeah, Clock Tower. What makes Clock Tower so special is that it's not only a horror game, but it's also a point-and-click mouse horror game. That's correct. So, as the killer is coming after you, fucking full speed, you know, how he walks, which is kind of like this lumbering little fucking limp thing he's got, you have to click on shit. Sometimes it's buggy, and you will run full barrel right into his ass unless you know what you're doing. So it takes a little bit of getting used to, but we ended up taking this game back early, probably about a couple of days or so, because we were literally freaked the fuck out. But then we didn't talk about anything else but for like 2 months afterwards. So we rented it and rented it again, and then I finally went out and bought the fucking thing for like $20 on eBay. And this is the same copy I've had since then. And that was about 12 years ago. So I've had it for a while. Disc's still in very good shape. Still plays awesomely. Some folks may not say that it's aged well because it uses polygons and shit, and this is about mid-90s, but what can you do? It's still fucking awesome. Check it out. That second game that I was talking about, I didn't even know was Konami, but Project Overkill. See, this is the back cover. This is another thing that I really enjoyed about PlayStation 1 games. When you go to the rental stores, that they'd have this awesome back cover art here. You can see screenshots in the game, maybe some reviews, maybe a little bit of backstory in the characters. But in the end, Project Overkill is an isometric diagonal type shooter where you're given missions. You have 3 or 4 characters you can pick from. You gotta go in, complete the objective, and not die, which is a lot harder than it sounds. I've only been able to get to about level 4 in this game, and I think there goes all the way up to like 9 or 10, I'm not even sure. But I'd encourage you to check out Project Overkill. It has a fucking shredding soundtrack, and it's pretty brutal. Here's another one that stole my attention for 2 years, you'd never guess it. Monster Rancher 2, that is correct. So, the premise of this game is you get a baby monster, you raise it up, and you train it, and then you put it into fights, and you try to win. And you try to go all the way up to the Big 3, I think is what they call it. I can't remember. It's literally been about a year or so since I've turned it on. This is the game I've owned the longest. This is about 15 years I've owned this. What's really cool about a unique feature of Monster Rancher 2 is if you have a save file for Monster Rancher 1 on your memory card, and you plug it into, and with use with Monster Rancher 2, you can get a special monster through its slate function. Or you can go to the, whatever the nursery is in fucking town. I can't remember the name of it. I think it's like Estuary or some shit. But you go there, you say you want to create a monster, and you can create monsters from your actual CDs that you have lying around. No joke. If you ever get the chance, I'd get on this game as soon as you can, because this one is getting expensive. I think I've seen it for about $25 in similar condition to what I have here. So check this one out. Okay, if I ever wanted to make an RPG fan notice pants, I just mentioned this one online. Legend of Dragoon. Now, Legend of Dragoon is a 4-disc RPG. I think it's like a JRPG. I wouldn't know if this classifies or not, but it's got tons of story, tons of backdrop, everything you could possibly imagine. And what's even funnier is I've never even gotten past the first disc on this. So this is an insane adventure. I was first introduced to it by a neighbor who asked me to check it out. He let me rent it for a couple of weeks, and I loved it. I actually didn't stop playing it for about, I don't know, 8 hours. I was sitting around that day, had the day off, so I'd say, fuck it, check out Legend of Dragoon. It's got pretty good music. Battle system's pretty amazing. I guess you could say the polygonal graphics might not have aged well for some, but fuck it. This PlayStation 1 was kind of like the testing ground for 3D games. So Nintendo had its N64, Sony had its PlayStation 1, and regardless if what you think how they've aged or whatever, the gameplay is what matters at the end of the day, and I cannot recommend Legend of Dragoon enough because of all of its RPG elements and rich storylines. Alright, what's next? Here we go. Spyro the Dragon. Now, I did not pay $17.99 for this, what you see. I've actually paid about $10 for this, but this one's in pretty good shape. This is where it all started. So you hear about Skylanders and all that shit. Look at that. This thing's in great shape. Tell you the truth, I haven't even played this particular copy yet. My neighbor, he had a copy, and I was playing that, and I fucking loved it. It's got a lot of characters, everything else, a lot of exploration. I know fellow fucking gamers out there like Steven Eider and them are big-time exploration nuts, so they might want to get their Spyro the Dragon on, folks like that. But yeah, if you're not in a big rush and you like checking shit out every nook and cranny, Spyro is where you go. Alright, I will defend this game to the bitter end, what I'm about to introduce to you folks, and that would be Resident Evil Director's Cut with dual shock capabilities. Holy shit, this is cutting edge. Everyone knows this game. This is where Resident Evil got started, you know, the Biohazard in Japan and then the release of Resident Evil in the States, and this is the Director's Cut version, which some say is not truly the first version because they added like a whole bunch of auto aim functions and bullshit like that, but I say fuck them. This is the one that I rented. This is the one I fell in love with. I don't even know if I could go back and not have auto aim. I mean, that's just me being real. But what really wins me over with Resident Evil Director's Cut are the cheesy voiceovers and the B-movie feel to it. This game has it all.
Yeah, so much for him. We got to the root of the problem.
Here's a lockpick. It might be handy if you, the master of unlocking, take it with you.
If you ever sat down late at night trying to watch an AMC fucking zombie flick, this is about the equivalent you would get with a controller in your hands. So yes, Resident Evil Director's Cut. Amazing game. Oh yeah. Woo! Okay, this game carries all the feels for me, alright? Totally discovered it by accident with my brother years and years ago. Breath of Fire 3. Yeah, look at this game. So this is a one single disc adventure, but they packed so much shit into it, you wouldn't even guess. Yeah, I mean, that would be almost right on par with like Final Fantasy 7, 8, if you really wanted to get all of the unlockables and get all the masters and everything else. But it's about Ryu. He's a child, and he can turn into dragons. And then that's one half of the adventure. You go through all that shit. And then Ryu is rediscovered as a teenager later, and then they all try to get on with their adventure and shit, and the master system definitely improves over time. Sometimes you gotta get a shit master in order to get a great master, but this game has it all. I mean, it has exploration, it has a really nice fighting system, it has a lot of magic, it has a lot of customization for the type of dragon Ryu turns into, etc, etc, etc. And you would be hard-pressed to find this one for around $20 to $25 on eBay, so if you have not, I would recommend getting a hold of this if you're any sort of RPG fan, because it's climbing. It was already up there about, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. It's probably worse now. Oh yeah, we can't say no to a classic. So, My last couple of trips ago to the Oregon coast, I always hit up Recycle Video Games. Those folks are actually really awesome. I don't really go anywhere else because these are the only folks that will actually sit there and talk to me about video games. And I was able to pick up this baby for 20 bucks. Castlevania, Symphony of the Night. So, yep, this is my physical copy. I haven't honestly really taken it out of the case in a while because I do have a digital version on my PS3. Which is hooked right up to my projector, so that one just makes more sense to play, and then that way I can leave this thing in nice shape. But check this out, some more of that internal cover art. Coming soon, Silent Hill. That's fucking awesome. Now that is one of the other games I picked up first day, Silent Hill. And then the last one that I ever picked up was Manhunt for PlayStation 2, but we'll talk about that more in a later episode. But yes, Castlevania Symphony of the Night, amazing music, amazing game. This is where the Metroidvania thing all got started. This shit right here. Amazing game. Check it out. If you have not already. I mean, who the fuck am I talking to? There was a neat little time waster that my brother and I used to have, and that was Tekken 3. Now, it's largely unappreciated these days because of all the newer variants of Tekken that have been released. But Tekken 3 is the one that we were the best at. You had a ton of unlockables, but for me, Heihachi was my main. Anyone wanted to fucking get toe-to-toe with me with Heihachi, I would dust their ass 9 times out of 10. Then my brother started creeping up on me, and the little fucker would start kicking my ass whenever he would start using, like, what was that guy's name? Hiroyobi or whatever. He was Bake's apprentice that appears in 3. Hoarong or some shit, I have no idea. Now look at that back cover art. That's badass. Yeah, I got Heihachi right there, front and center. That guy's my man. He kicks ass. 70-something years old, kicks ass. Next up, we got another game that is a favorite of mine, and Legacy of Cain Soul Reavers. You can tell I don't have the case anymore, but I do have the disc, and it runs like a charm. So, when I first played this game, there's a lot to go forward with. I mean, there's a lot of story, there's a lot of exploration, walking, finding shit, and I would get lost. Straight up, I would get lost. You can alternate between a dead realm and the living one. You can choose to victimize humans, or you can choose to save them, whichever you prefer. And this is about where the whole thing started taking off into the 3D realm, because the original Blood Omen was a top-down 2D adventure. And that happens to be one of my personal favorites. But then I heard about this one later. I seen a lot of advertisements for it, some shit in GameStop, or was it not GameStop, but GamePro. Yeah, remember GamePro magazine? Yeah, GamePro magazine. I read about 2 or 3 articles on this. I had to own it. So this is the second copy I've owned. The other one I had was all beat to shit, so I ended up rebuying this one for way cheap. And you probably still could for under 10 bucks. It's not uncommon. Alright. Picked this one up a couple of years ago, but Resident Evil 2. I did have a different copy years and years and years ago, but unfortunately it was absconded with. I have no idea what happened to it. But Resident Evil 2 is one of those adventures that keeps on giving. You choose between either Leon or Claire, and you can unlock shit the more that you play through. And I think if you play through like 6 times, you can do a run with Hunk from down in the sewer all the way up to the roof of the police station. That shit will kick your ass. I've tried it before, and I think you could even do that same run with another character named Tofu. Literally, a fucking stick of tofu with a knife. What the hell? Resident Evil 2 has it all. So if you have not already, check this one out. I believe I heard something about a remastered release somewhere in there. I'm not sure. But yeah, hit up Capcom.com and see what they got going on Resident Evil 2. I think I heard speculation a couple months back. Someone was talking about it. Okay. Now, we've already discussed Final Fantasy and how it can polarize the community so quickly. And this is one of the ones that does it. Final Fantasy VII. Now, for a lot of folks now, they like to say shit like, "Oh, that game's ridiculous. Why the fuck you talking about that, Lumpz? That's a bullshit game." Well, I'm going to tell you this. Nobody gave a fuck about none of that back when Final Fantasy VII was released for PlayStation 1, okay? My brother and I picked it up probably about 2 months after release. And that's all we played for like 2 years. Maybe even 3. I mean, we would literally swap off, go in between our save files, fucking beat shit up, and then we'd have to trade off, and we'd have like an hour to do all this. So, I mean, we had to go in sections and segments and try to knock out what we could when we could, and it was an amazing game. Still is an amazing game. I would say that the materia system is one of the more robust features that I like about it. You can customize all the hell. Matter of fact, there's forum after forum out there with what type of combinations you can use, shit. Along with like what weapons and whatever. So, yeah. This is the one that defined JRPG and pretty much brought it to the Western market, because no one really knew about all this shit prior to that. So, kudos to Squaresoft for bringing this one to the States. Absolutely love it, still do. And then we got another one, which was a follow-up 2 iterations later, Final Fantasy IX. Now, this is another one that a lot of folks are like, well, Lumpz, the characters, they're not like real people. They're all like animal style and weird looking and blah, 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 and unrelatable. Well, no, they are. The one thing about Zidane that pissed me off the whole time is that he's like the biggest pussy chaser in history. I mean, that's all he really thinks about. But then, like, when it gets down to shit, he actually emerged as a hero. Vivi, my all-time favorite character. He starts out, weak. He doesn't know where he's going, etc., etc. But he finds a little bit inner strength within. And Amaranth, he's a fucking silent badass, of course. Dagger is the shit. She gave Zidane the slip there in the beginning, which I thought was pretty awesome. And Steiner, fucking asshole. I'm just not a big fan of Steiner. But 4 discs long. This game is fucking cool. And I really need to pick it up again. It's been a couple of years since I gave it a shot. Okay, I picked this one up on eBay. This is my next one. Final Doom. Now, unfortunately, I don't have the cover case for this one, sadly, which actually is pretty cool. But funny enough is that the Final Doom manual is the exact replica of the one that you get with Doom for PlayStation 1. And it'll tell you the same story, the same control scheme, etc., etc. There's absolutely really nothing in there other than a couple of word changes, like from Doom to Final Doom, and that's literally it. So maybe they were trying to save on printing or something. I have no idea. But Final Doom contains about, 60 or 70 levels, all mashed up from, I think, Doom 2, and also some master levels of Doom 2. So if you ever want a challenge, try this one. And I'm pretty sure the double barrel shotgun's in this one too. Can't say no to that. In 1999, I was just a punk teenager. I think I was like 16 years old, something like that. I really didn't give a fuck about anything other than partying and girls and etc. But I did give a fuck about this. Silent Hill, released in 1999 by good folks at Konami. Now, first time I heard about Silent Hill was in a magazine, and I kept following it, and I followed it, and followed it. Then when I found out they released it, I went all the way down to Software Etc. In my local mall, and I pop in, and I pick up my own copy for about $20, no joke. I walk out, I bring it home, and I play the shit out of it. And that was the first copy that I had. I had it for about 10 years, and unfortunately that got lifted too. So this is my second copy. I think I bought this for about $10, no case, and it runs pretty fucking good. The CD's in really great shape. I do have a digital version on my PS3, which I normally play, so this one here is basically just my ode to survival horror, psychological horror. This game took Clock Tower's formula and fucking mashed it up even more so, to the point where it would melt your brain. So, some folks may not say that it's aged well. I still say it's an amazing adventure. Get to play as Harry Mason. Doesn't get much better than that. Every man's hero. Boom! The Resident Evil, I've been a big fan of the original trilogy, everything, so this is the tail end of it. Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. No, I did not pay $22.99 for this. I paid about $15 for it. And get to play as Jill Valentine, who you would recognize from the first Resident Evil. And it's pretty fucking cool. What separates this version from the earlier renditions is that events will happen in real time and you have to make a choice. And you only have 4 or 5 seconds to make a choice before whatever's on you is on you. And you get to create your own ammo. and you get all types of shit. There's a lot of exploration in it, and I would say this is a pretty robust adventure in the fact that you can push away zombies, you can explore different realms and areas. Of course, the first part happens in Raccoon City. You meet Carlos, you wind up in a clock tower. There's some shit in this game, so if you haven't tried it, check it out. Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. I've not been known to have eclectic tastes every once in a while, and this is another example of that. Real Fishing. Now, who put out Real Fishing? Natsume! Natsume is notorious for its quirky games. I actually like a lot of what they create, but what makes Real Fishing awesome is that they took photorealistic fishing holes and put the gameplay right into that, and then whatever you happen to catch you can put back in an aquarium and you can feed them just like you would pet fish. So if you get them in a river, you put them in a river tank. Get them in a fucking pond, you put them in a fucking pond tank. So Real Fishing is actually pretty amazing. See if I can get some shots in here of it. Yeah, that's about the best I can do. But yep, photorealistic, and you get to fight the fucking fish on the way up. It's just like, it's not like you hook them and you press a button and they're in the fucking boat. Don't work like that. Woohoo! Okay, I would say, let me do the math in my head real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4. About 15 years ago, I went on eBay and I was trying to find a copy of this game, and I could not find it. And then I finally found one, and the dude canceled my order and everything like the day after. But then, when all hope was lost, I went back, I found another copy of it on the fucking same price, about $10, $15, and I jumped on it before the price went up. What game is that? Blood Omen, Legacy of Cain. So this is where that whole shit got started. And every time I look at this, I really wish that Crystal Dynamics, Eidos, and Activision, all those guys, can figure out what the fuck's going on with this property. Because I wouldn't mind seeing more adventures, talking about Raziel, Cain, how this whole shit started. But yeah, this is a top-down 2D adventure. Cain can turn into a werewolf, bat, he can turn into a human, like a decoy type thing, and you get to explore around all over the place. There's a lot of backtracking involved with this one. Basically, you have to wipe out the Nine, the Circle of the Nine, and restore the Pillars of Nosgoth, is what your entire adventure is. There's a lot of story, there's a lot of backstabbings, there's a lot of character development. I cannot recommend Blood Omen Legacy of Cain enough. A lot of folks out there I know would absolutely drool over this game. Speaking of drooling over a game, my buddy Stephen Wilds, we were talking about this one a while back. When I got it, I posted it on my Twitter, and I think he about noted all over it, but Grand Theft Auto. Yeah, this is Grand Theft Auto, the very first Grand Theft Auto for PlayStation 1. Didn't have all the robust soundtracks and everything that you'd recognize from later titles. It does have a top-down, and there's a lot of missions that you can do, and a lot of action, and you could burp and fart throughout the game, which is pretty awesome. But what really got Steven fucking crazy about this particular copy is that it also includes the map. So, yeah, look, I got all this shit right here. See, this is San Andreas. So this is so crisp. It's so new that it's actually crisp. I mean, it's in great shape. So Grand Theft Auto, this is where it all started. I actually really dig this. I would play the fuck out of it any day of the week. This particular one, I'm actually missing one. This is Final Fantasy Anthology. What's supposed to come with is a copy of Final Fantasy V and Final Fantasy VI. So if you look here, no Final Fantasy V to be found. However, we got 6 right here, and this is the reason I keep this, because Final Fantasy VI is one of my favorite games of all time. Got a really awesome art of Kefka right there. I think that's pretty fucking dope. I'm sure there's somebody out there that would love to have that as their avatar. Kefka's probably one of the most evil villains I've ever come across, and that's why I picked this up. Now, I don't know if I would even be able to get a disc of Final Fantasy V for the Anthology. Maybe I'll have to jump on eBay and price that shit out. If I happen to figure out how much that is down the road, I'll certainly be able to let you folks know. But yeah, amazing game, Final Fantasy VI. Okay, Now this one is a game that I picked up just based on name alone, but I wouldn't mind seeing what it's capable of. This is Populous, the beginning. So this is Populous, like I talked about a little bit on my SNES video, but this is where you build your own tribe up pretty much from nothing, and then you got to take out the enemy. Now this is a more advanced version of it, as you can read there. 25 levels of challenging action-packed gameplay, 19 devastating spells. Now, if I recall correctly, there's 990 different renditions in the SNES Populous version, which is fucking phenomenal that they're able to change up that many variables and provide that many levels. So this one here, I'm curious to see like what the 25 levels offer. I mean, does it offer it up in chunks and subsets like that, where you get to play as different races? I'm not exactly sure. I've only gotten to like the second tutorial stage of this game and haven't picked it up since, but I'll be picking that one up later and see what it's all about. So we were talking about Doom, Final Doom earlier, and this is basically Ultimate Doom Custom PlayStation Edition, and that's a pretty fucking awesome box art that you get right there. Then you get some screenshots on the back. But what it means by Custom PlayStation Edition is that Aubrey Hodges actually did the soundtrack for Doom. That would be Doom, Final Doom, and Doom 64, the three titles that I'm aware of that Aubrey Hodges covered for. But what makes it amazing is a simple change in music turned Doom from the adrenaline-pumping space shooter game that you got on the PC version and turned it into a really creepy survival horror fucking game on PlayStation. And I put this on my projector downstairs with my surround sound system, and holy shit, it does fucking make you freak out. I'm no joke. This is a fucking awesome version of this game. I can't recommend it enough. Price, you can probably still get it for decent around 15, maybe 20. But I'd recommend getting on that. It's getting a little rarer to come across in real life. Alright. So here's the other Final Fantasy that I happen to enjoy quite a bit. That got a lot of flack about 10 years ago. Final Fantasy VIII. Now, the reason that Final Fantasy VIII got a lot of flack in the first place was because a lot of people didn't recognize or understand the item system. There's a lot of plus items. GEF system can be a little weird. The attacks can be a little funky. I know with Zell, it can be a little hard to master his moveset. But 4-disc adventure, it has a super-duper addictive card game that actually carried over into the ninth one. So Final Fantasy IX had a card game. Final Fantasy VIII is where it all got started. And I would actually spend more time playing cards than I would do the adventure. And I know that I'm not alone on that one. As a matter of fact, people are still creating apps to this day based on that triple triad card game. Final Fantasy VIII, yeah. Pretty decent cutscenes. Some folks might say the polygons didn't age too well. I see memes out there all the time based on Squall, but fuck them. Final Fantasy VIII's fun. Check it out. Last but not least, we have one game in particular that has totally captured my heart because it's so weird. Oddworld. Now, with Oddworld, you don't play as like a Duke Nukem style character where you go in and fuck shit up and blow everything apart. No. Abe can't do shit, but what Abe can do is he can chant, and by chant, he can control minds. So therefore, if you come across a slig fucking packing heat, fucking mind control and blow shit up. It's a puzzler. So you have to go around, you have to figure out how to rescue your fellow Mudokons, as well as how to progress further into the stage. And it isn't as simple as just walking from point A to point B. Sometimes you gotta flip a switch. Sometimes you gotta bait an enemy into going into a trap, whatever. So yeah, I would recommend checking out Oddworld. There's no timer in this game. You can literally figure out the puzzles for as long as you need to, and there's infinite lives. So there's really no incentive not to play this game. I'd recommend getting on it. Well folks, that about wraps up my PlayStation 1 collection. I will be returning at a later date with my PlayStation 2 games. We'll go ahead and talk about it. I've been adding to that one a little bit more lately. It's been getting harder to find more PS1 titles that fit my fucking bill of what I'm looking for. But anyway, I want to say thank you very much for tuning in, and Lumpz the Clown out.